On the left, I think it's his first open. We go ahead and free bet Ace Jack, which is pretty standard. And what it does is it sets up an aggressive dynamic straight away, which you're going to see us definitely take the more aggressive approach on both tables, and really try to control the match. You're going to see a little bit more in turbos, because I see it as more important to start gathering chips ASAP in turbos rather than waiting for certain situations. Well, not waiting, but having a little bit more time to wait for situations in regular speed heads-up sit-and-goes. I really want to just push and apply a lot of pressure to our opponents in turbo heads-up sit-and-goes, and gather as much chips as we can, so when it does get to push fold, we get the extra chances, so that if we're the big stack come push fold time, we can have them all in more times than they have us all in. Therefore, obviously, a flip being a flip, which you generally get involved in late in heads-up sit-and-goes, if you do get to the late game, what's going to happen is, if you actually have your opponent in more times than they have you all in, obviously you're going to win flips 50% of the time. Therefore, you're actually going to win more matches long run by actually having your opponents all in more often than they have you all in. On the left here, I think it's a pretty... it's not that thin, actually. But what we note here is that he check-called 2 straights there with top pair. Okay, he didn't bet the flop, he didn't bet the turn, he didn't bet the river with top pair, albeit not a great kicker. But we're certainly going to note that, and we've already started to kind of think that the guy on the left, J-Dumas, is going to be relatively tight in his ranges. And this is certainly something that's applicable even when you get into the late game. Your observations throughout the early game, so if someone's typically passive in the early game, and they tend to play their hands passively, then that's generally going to carry over into the late game as well. If you find that they're really tight early on, generally it carries into the late game as well. A lot of these characteristics are going to carry into your push-fold situations. You need to be aware, though, if dynamics do change, or if they do start actually changing their play. And you need to take particular note of that and adjust accordingly. In both these matches, however, I'm pretty sure that the reads that I develop early on against these guys is pretty much carried throughout the match.